You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites sound harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We've got Peyton live in studio at his house, and I am live in studio in my truck. This is not the first truck pod I've ever done, but this is the first truck pod that I have my computer, a battery pack, the podcast microphone. If somebody came by my truck right now, they'd be like, "Okay, this guy's he's a weatherman. Like he's
hacking. He's hacking. It's simple as that."
Somebody's gonna come by. Somebody's gonna come by and be like, he is literally hacking the entire world. He look at all his equipment." No, but well, we hadn't put out a podcast for. It's been not a week yet, but we usually put one out every Tuesday, every Friday. But the issue with that, keeping that schedule during hunting season, is we're hunting sometimes. So it's hard to keep up with that schedule sometimes. But speaking of someone that's been hunting, Peyton, you have been hunting up a storm, not the last 5 days, but the week of the 13th through the 20th, you were absolutely hunting up a storm on our lease in Oklahoma. So why did you even want to go down there this time? Because the 13th typically isn't a time of year where people are like, I've got to get to the lease, dude. Like, they're moving good. Why did you head down there?
I'm not going to sit there and, boost up our lease, but we have a pretty good lease to where these deer they're active, they're unpressured. So my opinion is, October is not going to be as good as November, but, around where we're at, October, you can get it done. I mean, the opening weekend, around where we hunt, Southwest, you end up harvesting a deer. I hit a good one, didn't make the best of shot, but end up shooting at one. And I mean, we've seen deer, daily since. So at least on cameras. So I thought, well, I got to get down there. They're up and moving.
Was there a cold front during that time that you went? There had to have been, because this October, man, I know it's been hot the last few days. It's the 25th today. This October has already had like 3 cold fronts in the first 3 weeks. Were you riding the coattails on one of those?
It was. That was the main reason. Now that I come to think of it, is I remember you calling me and saying, Carroll, you got to get down there, dude. You've got to hunt. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go this weekend. I went, and on Friday evening where we hunt, it's not the best evening spot because we're competing with wheat fields,
beans on top evening, sometimes too.
Yeah, we're competing with fields, and sometimes a feeder just can't outcompete a field, especially in the evening. So I was really hoping to get the job done in the mornings. So I think I hunted. We have 2 spots, what we call the big buck down spot, and then we just have the north feeder. I hunted the big buck down spot. Didn't have much luck. I think I ended up hunting Friday morning. I think I got down there Thursday night, maybe. Hunted Friday morning. Of course, look at the cell cam and think, oh goodness, the deer that we're going after, there was 2 or 3 that hit the north feeder. I thought, I'm going to go up there. So yeah, I ended up hunting that weekend, and I switched to the north feeder in the morning, set on the ground, got a good little spot. And then Saturday is when that cold front came through, and the stand that I hunted Friday produced when I was not there. That was when I ended up calling you at noon saying, dude, look at all the bucks on the other stand that I did not sit at.
So it was like the north stand historically, it's kind of closer towards some of the, I would say, the better bedding on the place, and then a lot closer to those wheat and bean fields that are up on the top. So that I feel like the deer kind of trickle off those fields in the morning, headed back to bed, and they hit that spot on the north just before they go bed for the midday when it heats up. But so you're usually in the morning, you see a lot of those deer hitting up there, and then they come back down to the south. Well, it was like the opposite the morning you were hunting. You were up there and you're like, I'm not kidding. Was there like 4 or 5 of the bucks that we were after? Like every single one of them?
Every one of the 11-pointer, Mr. Next Year, a few new deer moved in that day. And I was just like, man, you got to be kidding me. We had that new 10-pointer move in, which I'll talk shortly about, here in a little while. We had him move in and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, dude. Like, look at this camera. And I was like, all right. No more messing with the north. I'm not going to set on the ground up north. Like I'm sticking it out at Big Buck Down Stand from there on out.
So you hunted Saturday, you got screwed. And I remember you calling me and you're like, all right, you said they hit one of the two. I'm staying and I'm sticking it out at one of them because at the one that was easier. So Big Buck Down Stand, it's easier to slip in, way less intrusion. You don't have to walk to the heart of the property. And you had a good win for it. So you went in, hunted that Sunday morning, which would have been October 15th.
Correct.
And what was that Sunday morning? Because we got a really good cold front, still strong north winds, which pretty much follow every single cold front. What did you see that morning? What did you end up passing that morning?
Man, that was a magical morning. I don't think that I'll ever have a caliber of hunt like that for the rest of my life. As many decent deer that I saw. I want to say I saw probably 7 to 8 bucks. To anybody else, if we weren't managing on age, every single one of them, probably except one, were shooters, honestly. The big slap to the face was Mr. Next Year came in at about 9 a.m. And he sat there. He came around to the north, came around those cedars. And that was when I was like, it's him. And he came at 15 yards and he just sat there at 15 yards broadside looking around. And of course, we played the wind perfectly, or I played the wind perfectly. So there was, I wasn't nervous about him winning me or anything like that because the wind was great. He was to the north of me with the north wind, so I wasn't worried. And he sat there for 15 minutes broadside. And I just remember texting you like, okay, we're not going to shoot him, but are you sure we're not? Because he is 15 yards broadside. I will never in my life get another shot at him this easily. I need to know right now.
Well, it was one of those situations where it's like, hey, I know we made up our mind, but if we're going to change our mind, let's change it right now because he's standing right in front of me at 15 yards. And just to describe the deer, like a lot of people that have listened to the podcast over the summer are probably like, hey, like we know exactly what Mr. Next Year is. But for people that are maybe new to the podcast, we have a lot of new listeners. Mr. Next Year was a deer that was a 3.5-year-old last year and was a really cool 3.5-year-old, like a nice 8-pointer. And he had this dagger point that kind of came in between his 2 and his 3 and curved up. And what was it, Pate? Probably 4 or 5 inches last year.
Yeah,
it was good. It was good length.
He was probably right on the dot, 130 inch 8-point.
Yeah,
with just
and as a 3-year-old. And so we're like, okay, this deer's got a chance to be something like pretty special. And a lot of the deer down there have like this double throat patch. But he has one that's kind of shaped like a pear on his neck. And it's like pretty unique looking, like it has an indent. And so it's easier to, you see the horn characteristics and then you see that throat patch and he's easy to identify. Well, he blows up this summer and we're like, I don't know if he's 150. I don't know if he's 160. I sent the video of him in velvet to some people and they're like, dude, 170s. I'm like, okay, no, he's not 170s. Yeah. I know he's not 170s, but we had to make a decision and we waited. We were like, let's see him outside of velvet. Like, let's wait, see him outside of velvet. We know he's a 4.5-year-old buck. We are managing for age on this place. And so we do want to shoot bucks in that older age class. So 5.5 and up. But, when you have 160, if he was a true 160 inch 4-year-old, we probably would have been like, hey, we got to shoot him. He's a 160 inch 4-year-old. He's bigger than anything we've ever shot. So let's take him. But I think you've seen him in person. He's a really nice 8-point, probably a 130 class 8-point frame, but has 2 internal flyers in between the 2s and 3s that are probably 10 apiece at least. And they curve up past his G2s. And he has about a 4 or 5 inch dagger point off the front of his base. You saw him in person. What class of deer do you think he is?
One more year and he's a class of a shooter. I know that.
If he gets seen in a rifle season, he's going to be a shooter for somebody.
That's the thing, is if somebody else catches him with a rifle, they're going to say that he's just an awesome deer. When it comes down
so
to
unique
it,
looking.
You don't see deer like that many times in your life. You know, he's got 2 horns that are right there with each other. One's like almost on the inside of the other one. One's almost on the inside of, like his 2 or his 3s are almost on the inside of his 2s. It's hard to say he's not big framed. He's not super wide. But I think his main beam length is longer than you would think. I want to say close to 20. I would say 20 on the dot. What's magical about him is each time we're talking possibly 10 to 12 inches on each tine. Got decent brow tines, just not the craziest width. My guess is 15.
Yeah, probably 14 or 15.
15 inches wide, but he's just so tall. I mean, he's tall, and I got phone footage of him, at 15 yards, where I'm like, well, I got nothing better to do. I can't. My camera was above me, so I couldn't reach up there, and I got 7 doe in front of me too, and I was like, well, I got my phone in my hand. I wasn't even going to pick up my bow because the arrow would have found his way to him.
If that bow levitated into your hand, it would have got drawn back and fired itself.
Yeah,
some way.
I would have been. That would have been. Hey God, it's me again. How am I going to tell Christian?
It's all right. I almost did that to Drew. Like, how am I going to tell Drew I shot 2 140 pluses in one SID? I was just thinking about how to tell him. No, I'm just kidding. But you would say he's probably a low 150s type of deer.
Yeah, he's one of those that, I'll say this: it wouldn't surprise me if he went 148 inches, but it wouldn't surprise me if he went 158 inches. So
yeah, that's a big range.
Yeah, 148 to 158 with that tine length. With that tine length, you just never know. Because if he didn't have the tine length, I would say, yeah, possibly, mid to low 140s. But just with that tine length, and the width is the only thing that he doesn't have. And I mean, you're only talking, 2 extra inches, 3 extra inches when it comes down to that. And I know you add main beam length when you get width, but still, I think
he doesn't have crazy mass. Like, I'd say he's at average mass, probably like 4-inch mass measurements, like across the board, probably maybe a little differently depending on that webbing between those flyer points. But he was just a type of deer that we're like, hey, we have 4-year-olds. If there's 4-year-olds to shoot, this is not the one. There's other 4-year-olds that we can shoot. Like, there's 130-inch 8-pointers that we can shoot. There's an 11-pointer, and there's probably 140s. We can, if we're going to take out a deer in that 4.5-year-old age class, there's weaker ones to take out. And I think he's just the type of deer that he had that dagger point as a 3-year-old. And then as a 4-year-old threw double daggers. And he is a deer that I think at 5.5 years old that puts on mass. He might still have that same narrow frame, which is fine. But if he puts on mass, I think he's the type of deer that has the ability to like throw kickers and throw stickers and throw drop tines, that kind of buck. And if there's anyone that I want to like gamble and go, all right, all in on 170 plus, he's that type of deer.
Yeah, I agree. He's something special. And that's kind of what we decided as we sat down and talked, hey, do we think we're going to kill other 155-inch deer in our life? Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty.
Hope so.
I think. I
hope so, or you're going to be pissed.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think looking back 30 years from now, and it'd be like, why did you not let me shoot them? But no, that's what we talked about. Is we're probably going to kill deer that are bigger than him right now. So why take the chance on that 4.5-year-old to where possibly we might not ever kill a bigger deer than him come next year? It's worth that gamble. Of he might be, if he grows another 2 inches on those main beams, or he grows an inch on the width or anything. I mean, I don't see him going downhill from here. So it's worth that
And he
gamble.
probably put on 20 plus from a 3 to a 4-year-old.
That's the thing that is the most exciting, is that deer gained 20 inches in 1 year. So not saying that he's going to the next year, but even if he gains 5 to 10 inches, I'd be thrilled. Absolutely thrilled about it.
So you had him come in, you passed him. What, and during that Saturday and that Sunday that you were hunting, so the 14th and 15th, what other bucks did you have that were new, or other bucks that showed up that you were like, this one's not really going to meet it, but I want to pick the bow up and shoot one?
Yeah. So the first morning that I set at the north stand was Saturday morning, and that's when they kind of all came there. I got them pictures on camera. I didn't know what to think, because pictures are a little different than when you see them in person. You know, you see them in person, you're like, oh, they're 10 inches bigger than the camera showed, you know?
Yeah.
So Sunday morning, we had a new 8 come in, or I'm sorry, Saturday morning, but I laid eyes on him Sunday. We had a new 8 come in. I mean, he's just like the deer that I have on the wall right up here. Just, I would say he's probably 5 to 10 inches smaller. I mean, he has the exact frame. He's pretty wide. His twos, you know how most deer's twos will come up and in. My deer on the wall, as well as this deer that I saw yesterday, his twos like go straight up and back almost. They're straight up and back, where I'm almost like, I doubt it, but he could even be a descendant or a kid from the one that I have, because it would make sense. I mean,
yeah, right across the river.
Yeah, right across the river a few years ago. I mean, I shot this one, 3 or 4 years ago, and this deer he was probably 3.5, 4.5 years old. I don't know how old this deer was. So he looked exactly like the one that I have on the wall here. He came in, and he was one of those, we talked about him. I said, hey, I don't think I shoot this one. And you said, hey, don't shoot him. We have an old mature 8, which is one that I'll get into in a little bit. He's in there, and he's only 5 inches smaller than that deer, and he's 6.5, could be 7.5-year-old deer, and then we had a new 10-point come in, and he is a young, beautiful deer, where this deer, if he blows up at all, he might be 150s next year. I think he's low to mid 130s as a 10-point. Doesn't have the best mass, but has decent width, decent tine length of like, okay, he's for sure he's not old, but my guess is 4.5. He doesn't look too mature, but he came in, and that was kind of towards the end of the sit. And then I heard some grunting over to my left, and looked over, and I saw a deer scraping its foot, doing one of those ground scrapes. I don't even know what they're called.
Scrapes.
I was like, a ground scrape, and I thought, what is that?
You got a new term.
Yeah, ground scrape. Oh, there's tree scrapes and there's ground scrape. So he was scraping it up, and I looked over, and I saw his ears pinned back, and it was the old mature buck that we decided to name Refrigerator, because his body is a refrigerator.
So
that dude is a hoss.
So we've been watching the Refrigerator. By the way, I went to my buddy Jake's place this last week, and we were comparing pictures, because they have basically a lease across the river from this place. I was like, let's see if there's any bucks that we have. We have to have some bucks that we have in common. There was that 6-point that came through in the middle of the rut last year, that real gnarly looking one with the blind eye, that buck. And then guess who was there in the middle of August? The Refrigerator.
Yeah.
He was over across the river, and he moved in, and I kid you not, we watched this deer all summer, and we've shot big bodied deer out of there. Like, I think we've shot a couple like 230 plus live weight out of there. This deer, I think, I don't know, but I would say he's pushing 250. Like, he's the biggest bodied deer I've ever seen. And he's been in there. I've had the lease since 2021. He's been in there every year, and he was mature in 2021. Like, he is a legit freak in the body.
Yeah, and that dude, I have a picture on my camera that I got footage of. This guy looks like he's a big old just basketball with pencils as legs. Like, he is so big bodied in those little legs. I'm like, how do those little legs? Because he's so old. I mean, man, he's old. But I heard him grunting, and he did a little scrape, and he came in and he ran every deer off that corn. He ducked his head and didn't run at him, but ducked him and kind of did a little charge and just ran every deer off there. Because we had been talking for a few weeks. Hey, this deer is a problem, because he's so old, he's so mature, and he's so big. He's just so big bodied that I think he's running these other deer off, because it seems like when we have deer on camera, he's not on there, but when we have him on there, other deer on camera. Because yeah, we know why, because he's running them all off. And I watched it, I watched it, and I got a little bit of footage of him doing it as well.
Yeah, he's cool. He's one of those deer that you need to shoot, but you're like, all right, it's October 15th. I'm not putting a tag on a 120-inch 7-year-old. He's the type of deer that when December rolls around, and if you still have a buck tag, he's the kind of buck you're like, all right, he has to go. He has to go. And I would on our other lease, we let someone come in and shoot a coal buck the other day. We let Jace, Drew's. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah. I ended up calling Drew, talking to him about it a little bit.
Yeah. We let Jace come in and shoot that buck, and I'm like, okay, this is a buck that if at the end of the year he's still around and neither of us have a tag, I am going to petition for somebody to come in and demolish him, because he is a problem, and he's the type of deer that if you don't shoot him, I think you're just going to find him in the spring.
I would love for Lauren. I want him in your house. I want him in one of our houses.
He's cool. Dude. He's freaking
cool. I
want
want him in our house, dude. So it's almost like, hey, Lauren, you have a buck tag in Oklahoma, and what's this on the front? Is this a crossbow? Oh, sweet.
Or rifle
crossbow.
Season.
Yeah, just a crossbow just got ordered. That's weird. All right, we'll use it.
Yeah. He's like probably a low 120s 8, but the issue is he has a good frame. He just doesn't have any G3s. He's basically just a monster 6-point with 2 inches on one side and then an inch on the other. For his
and don't
G3s.
Get this wrong. He might be an old buck, but this is still a good deer. Like any other year or last year, or if I don't have, if I didn't shoot the one that I shot last year, I would probably shoot him any other year, where it's just like, hey, with the caliber of what we have this year, I can't do that. But yeah, I'm just so scared. I'm in the same boat where, man, we're going to walk across his dead head. If it's a nasty winter, I highly doubt he makes it through a nasty winter with how old that deer is. So
we're going to, don't think that we're only prioritizing a deer with score. We're going to try to kill this deer. It's just not right now.
Yeah.
We're not going to kill him in October. He probably should be killed in October, because dude, he just looks like a deer that you're like, all right, build your fighter for a fighting buck. And you're like, all right, I got him right here.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. And he has the confidence of a lion, because that 10-pointer and that 8-pointer were in there. And he was just like, hope you all ate good, because this is mine now.
Yeah. It's me time, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. He just rolled out of bed. It was towards the end of the hunt. He just rolled out of bed, and he's like, all right, hope you all got fed, because you're gone. Everyone is.
Yeah. Yeah, so he came in, you ended up passing him. He was a buck that I was like, man, if I see him with my recurve, he might get shot. But thankfully, I went in there one time this last week and I did not see him, because if he would have come in, I don't even know if I could penetrate him with a recurve. He might just bounce off and just run off. Yeah. But what else did you ended up seeing? You ended up staying, you hunted that weekend, and you ended up hunting a couple days in the early part of the week.
Yeah, so I end up towards the end of Sunday hunt I told you wrong. Yeah, I end up hunting Sunday, had a really magical morning. Then Monday had even a good morning too, and saw a lot of the same deer. Didn't see Mr. Next Year, but Monday I saw the 10-pointer. I think I don't remember what all I saw Monday, but it was a really good hunt too. And then towards the end, I had 2 new deer coming down to the south of me. We always hunt there with the north or northeast wind. Northeast is perfect. North can get you if they come to the south on that road, but it happened to be a straight north wind, and I had 2 good deer coming into the south of me. One was pretty wide. He wasn't mature. He was decent. I mean, this deer was fairly wide. I want to say 16, 17 inches. We have him on camera, and I'll show you which one I'm talking about. He's super young. His tine length is horrible, but he's really wide. And he was with another deer that I couldn't get a good look at. One of the main reasons why I was there too is I was going for that 11-pointer. He played the switcheroo on me every single day. He hit the north feeder when I was at the south feeder, and he hit the south feeder when I was at the north feeder. Don't think I got eyes on him, but yeah, I mean, that was pretty much all the bucks. I ended up hunting Monday evening, and that was when on the ride home,
What happened?
A crazy ride home. I got I just got outside the gate and I called a family member. A family member called me and said, "Hey, are you coming down to Public?" And I was like, "No, no, I'm not going to. I'm gonna stick it out here." And he said, "Well, I had an unfortunate circumstance where I went to shoot a deer and I hit a tree limb and sent my arrow, couldn't find my
Well,
arrow."
me and Jake were hunting public at the same place as this guy, your family member, and
Yeah,
he had texted us the same thing. But yeah, you were hunting. We were hunting somewhere else. You were hunting there, and you were on the phone with him.
yeah. And so I was just shutting the gate, hopping the truck, and hadn't been on the phone with him for 30 seconds. Then had a this is dark, after the evening hunt. I think it was on Monday, Sunday or Monday, and I had a absolute giant run right out in front of me. I mean, I slammed on the brakes, not just hit the brakes, slammed on the brakes, skirted the tires on a dirt road, and he came out to the middle of the road, stopped, turned, and looked right at me because had those headlights on him, and he was just a giant. And I just remember telling my family member, "Oh my gosh, I'm looking at a 160-inch deer, possibly 170-inch deer right in front of me right now, as we're talking in the middle of the road, 10 yards in front of me, looking at me." And he kind of turned his head and then ran off. And I just remember, okay, so there's pros and there's cons to this. The cons is he didn't come by my stand. The pro is he is within a mile, as the crow flies, maybe not even a mile from where we hunt.
Yeah, probably a little less.
Yeah. And so I end up calling you, and I think I called another family member. I was like, "Oh, you ain't going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. What I saw." And then come to find out, I was like, "I think I know what deer that was." And we had him one time back in, I think it was August.
It was August, yeah, early August, because I remember
Early-
you kept saying he would grow more.
Yeah, because he was 150s back in early August, and that was about that time where, like, are they going to grow more? Are they going to grow more? And I was like, "No, he's going to. He's going to. Trust me. He'll grow more." And by God, he grew more. He did. I think he's a 12. I think, because I remember telling people, "Hey, he was either 12 to 14 points. He had a lot of points. I don't know how many."
I think
But he
he's a
had a
7x5. One
Yeah,
side it looks like a freaking crayons just stacked up.
Yeah, and he was wide. He had mass. He had beam length, and I was like, he is a 160-inch deer, I think. So
Yeah, well, we had him, and you hit him, and you're like, I think, or you almost hit him, and you're like, well, I think it's a buck we know of, and we're like, yeah, I mean, that might have been him, but we only had like 3 pictures of him. It was like one night, and you're like, we knew he was a big one, but not enough to be like, okay, let's guess, like, what is he? And it was in August or like whatever. Well, come to find out this week, like as I'm about to head up to spend a couple days with Jake, he shows up in daylight on
Sunday
Big Buck Down.
morning. Sunday morning, and just for the people that don't know, I was there from that Friday to that Friday. I was supposed to be hunting Saturday and Sunday, but the wind switched up on me Friday evening and switched to a south wind Saturday, Sunday. So now, given if I was there, maybe he didn't come back in, but there's also, kind of a twist to that story, because on Friday, or the last day I was there, that last morning, one of the first bucks that I saw, I didn't get a good look at him, but I thought that he was 11 pointer. He came in with his head down behind some trees, and I thought, giant. He's giant. Good deer, shooter. Well, he came in. He was kind of behind some trees. I stood up, grabbed my bow. He wasn't looking at me, and then he just kind of just trotted off, just went the other way. Saw that there were 7 or 8 doe, I guess, on the feeder, and just realized, it's not worth it. And then trotted off. And I thought, okay, maybe that was the 11 pointer. I don't know what deer that was, but he had a lot of points, and he was a good one, because I didn't get a really good look at him.
Just saw like a frame.
I just saw a frame and realized, okay, he's either 11 pointer, or we don't have any other deer, that have that many points as him. So now that I think about it, it could have been him. I think he came in on me Friday and just realized, hey, something's not right, or there's too many doe on the feeder, and then he ran the other way.
Yeah, well, he showed up on that camera, and I remember looking at him and being like, yeah, he's just as big as I thought he was. He might be bigger. Like, and our buddy Jake, who we spend time with down there, he's historically, like, if you think a deer's 150s and you get a little excited about it, he's like, yeah, low 140s, and kind of brings you back to reality when you want a deer to be a little bit bigger. And I was like, what do you think? And he's like, oh, he's 160s easy. And I was like, really? You think he's 160s? He's probably 170s. But no, he didn't. I don't think he has the time length to be a booner, but he is just a gorgeous deer, and he's mature. He's a beast, and I think he's a nomad. I mean, he's either hitting excursions to come down into that spot. I think what's happening is those deer, they spend a lot of the time in the early season up on that, either the weed or the beans or whatever's up there. Heck, there might even be some milo. But as we start approaching that pre-rut, like last 2 weeks of October, they're like, hey, where's all the little hoochie mamas? And all the little hoochie mamas are down in the cover. They're down in the cover.
They're on our
hanging
corn.
Out.
It's where they're at.
Yeah.
All 120 of them.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of those bucks come down and they start checking for those does in those bedding areas. And we got them, man. When I was hunting this last week, they come out from every direction. Yeah. It's like, it's hard to even hunt in there because there's so many freaking does. But
yeah, that's the thing is you're like, oh man, I don't know about this wind. And it's kind of like, all right, hey, just get out there and hunt, dude. As long as it's not a west wind and as long as it's not straight south, go hunt, because it's like, oh, most of these deer might come from the northwest. It's like, no, when I set the other day, they all came from the east. And then you go sit and they're like, oh, they all came from the west. It's like, they just come from everywhere down there. We're like, you just don't want to hunt that south because that is the bedding up there to the northwest. So,
yeah. And I hunted it after that buck showed up. I went and hunted it for a morning, and it was a southeast wind, which is kind of like a marginal wind. It's not like, if you've got more east than south, it's actually probably a really good wind. An east wind in there is amazing. But those light winds, like between 0 and 15 mile an hour, seem like they swirl, like they go to the south and they go straight east, and they go to the south, they go straight east. I hunted in there and saw 15 does one morning, and I never got winded. Granted, that doesn't mean there wasn't a buck 50 yards to the north of me that just ran off. But I went in there and hunted it with kind of a marginal wind, which I would not recommend. Just trying to get after that buck, because I knew, like, okay, he doesn't come in very often. If he's in here, I might be able to get him like one more morning or something. Yeah,
that was my thought process of like, hey,
that ended,
man, he was there yesterday. It might not be the best wind, but if he comes around one more morning, then pop him, get in there and give it a shot.
Well, and that, to be honest, the morning that I shot the 6x7 last year, it was a southeast wind. It was probably more east than it was south, but on that southeast wind, it kind of gives those bucks in that area false confidence, because the wind is coming into their nose. But if they don't get far enough into the cover when they're coming out, they're not going to wind you if they come up down that edge. And so I feel like the southeast is a really good wind in that direction or in that spot, but it's just too variable to hunt it. It goes from south to east and south to east. But a north wind in that spot almost always is with a cold front. And we do really, really well on a north wind in that spot, which we have in the next week, the next 3-4 days. We're getting, which is exciting. We're going from freaking highs in the 80s. It was like 88 the other day to highs in the 40s, 50s. One day it's going to be 28 lows.
Yeah, I mean, next week is looking spectacular. I mean, there's 2 mornings. I think Monday, Tuesday are like
20s,
lows of 20s. Yeah, like when you're out there hunting, you're talking it's not going to get over 40 degrees while you're out there hunting. So
that's going to be good. Yeah, those are going to be good. I hunted this last weekend. I know we're updating you guys like for like a 2-week block almost of hunting, but man, we're all over the place. I'm going from Texas to Oklahoma. Everybody's driving across the state to hunt. So we just haven't had time to record a podcast, but I hunted this last weekend with my recurve. I'm actually in the parking lot of the draw hunt that I'm about to do for the recurve only in Oklahoma. And I went down to the lease to try to shoot a doe with my recurve. And I had I think it was Saturday evening, I had a doe come in. So, when a fawn comes out first and it's a fawn, but in your mind, you're like, maybe it is a doe, and you're looking at it, you're like, it's not a button buck, but maybe that is a doe. And then a mature doe walks out. You're like, oh no, that's 1/3 of the size. Yeah, mature doe. Yeah. Well, I had my recurve in my hand, and when the first fawn stepped out, I was like, it's not a button buck. I was like, I'm thinking about letting one fly on this thing, and then I was like, no, don't freaking do that. Don't stoop to that level. Can't say I didn't think about it, but and then this mature, like, few fawns come out, another doe comes out. Then this mature doe comes behind me and starts trickling in, and there was a forky in this spot, and he ran her off. And as she was running off, I drew back, anchored. I think I probably got I was probably an inch and a half or 2 inches too short on my anchor now that I think about it. Like, didn't get it far enough back. But I shot at this doe, and she was kind of slow walking as I shot. I shot like a foot behind her. My first shot, I was like, huh. I was like, did I hit her and go through her? And she's just like standing there confused. And then I look and saw my my yellow and orange fletchings like a foot behind her. I was like, huh, okay. And then she runs off. She sneaks back in, and I draw back on her again. And this time, bonk, sticker. I mean, probably 6 inches behind the shoulder, 25-degree quartering away angle. And I think I stuck it in like her opposite shoulder or her leg, one of the two. And I'm like, okay, heart shot, like she's done. I didn't get it on footage because it was too zoomed in. And I really I wanted to have some confidence going into this hunt, this recurve only hunt, because there's absolute monsters here. And I was like, I have to shoot a doe. I went in, put a really good shot placement on that doe. And I don't know if you guys can hear the rain that's happening right now, but it's been raining for how many days now? 3, 4?
Yeah, dude, it's been, I haven't seen, the sun hasn't been out in 3 days.
Yeah. Well, I came in and I was hunting before the rain. And so I got down, looked for my arrow, of course, grabbed my first arrow out of the freaking dirt. And I'm like, okay, missed her on that one. Second one is still in her, obviously. And she runs off. I thought I heard her crash in this spot, but I guess I didn't. I looked for about 20 minutes, no blood. You're already getting a really small hole with the broadheads that I'm using for my recurve. They're like an inch cut. So I'm like, okay, now I don't have a big hole and the arrow's still in her. I'm probably not gonna get a ton of blood or any at all. And I ended up going to the property line. I went home, and after I searched for 20 minutes, I went home and I came back probably 10 hours later because it rained for like 10 or 11 hours straight, like hard rain. I'm like, well, this sucks. Now when I go find her, it doesn't even matter. If I find her, she's going to be spoiled because not only is it raining and windy, it's still 80 degrees while it's raining. So that was super unfortunate. And I went up to the property line, and I assumed that she jumped the fence and made it, like, it's only like 80 yards to the property line. I assumed she jumped the fence and went into the next property in this little tree pin. But I was talking to Jake, and he was like, hey, those guys hunt. They have trail cams in there. It's not a good idea to go over there and look for that doe. And I don't think it would be best to do that, especially Art, considering that the meat's going to be spoiled. So I made what I think is a good shot on a deer with my recurve and didn't recover it, which going into a place where there's 200-inch bucks does definitely not help your confidence. But
that's different though. That it's going to be a little different. First of all, here's what I say is I get out there with my compound bow and I look at a doe at 25 yards. I'm like, there's not a lot of room for error. There's really not a lot of room for error. But when you get a buck in front of you, you're like, that thing is double the size. So
legit double the size.
Yeah, the body is double, because I get to where I'm like, man, there's only like that big of a window of that, a softball size area that you can hit a doe. That's like, okay, I will be confident. But with a buck, it's like, all right, basketball size, anywhere in there. Buck might be a little harder to bring down, but I think your vitals and stuff are going to be a lot bigger. So you get any arrow penetration and hit a good shot, I don't think it'll be any problem with a buck.
Yeah. I don't know. It was crazy because when I picked up the recurve, dude, like I left my compound back in the truck, and no joke, when a fawn walked in, I was like, dude, I'm shaking like a leaf. Like, what the frick? Like, it felt, I don't know why it felt, I mean, I guess it feels super primitive because it is a primitive equipment, but I felt like
day one.
Yeah, like day one of bringing your compound back, like when you're like, okay, I draw back, I'm not hitting this deer. It's just how bad am I gonna miss? That sort of situation when you first hunt with a compound. It's like 5 times worse because I'm like, okay, not only is the kill spot pretty small on this doe, I cannot shoot past 20 yards. No way. This doe I shot was like 18 yards, and I felt like the arrow took 2 minutes to get her to her. So I definitely have to aim low, but it just, dude, it is so primitive and so awesome that I was like, if I kill a doe with this thing, it's going to be a freaking accomplishment. And I've been shooting it all summer, almost every single day in the summer. I still have a ton of stuff to learn about it, but man, it felt cool to be hunting with a recurve. And now I'm down in a spot that has 200-inch deer, and I have a freaking stick and a string in my hand. And I'm like, man, I This makes me nervous. This makes me really nervous.
I don't think I've ever even touched a recurve, but as a person that's never shot it, my only advice, which may be terrible advice and no help at all, would be you're just hunting. I mean, you're hunting out at the end of the day, pull back and shoot. Wouldn't think about too much about it. Pull back and shoot.
Me and Justin were kind of talking about it when I was driving up, because he's like, "Hey, you getting the jitters already?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm nervous." And we were talking through it, and he said, "Listen, get in a good spot. If a 200-incher walks by, shoot like you normally would, draw back, anchor, pull through." He said, "After the arrow leaves, there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
just enjoy it." I'm like, "Yeah." You can't film in this place, so I have no camera. I literally am as lean as I've been in years. 3 sticks, saddle platform, and a bow. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. The other day, actually yesterday evening when I was hunting, I left my phone in the truck on accident and just sat there for 3 hours. I was like, this is nice. Like, this is really nice. Like, no phone. I'm just enjoying it, watching little buck, watching does run around. It was nice. So I'm going to be in here, no cell phone service, primitive equipment, no cameras. This is going to be like as close to real hunting as I've got. Because there was a guy in our YouTube video, Jake made that the basics of hunting video. Yeah. And Jake was talking about his trail cam strategy on there, and the guy goes, "Real hunters don't even use trail cameras." And I'm like, okay, buddy. All right. So yeah. I guess, according to him, this is my first real hunt. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, those keyboard warriors, I always listen to them and do what they say because they know everything.
Yeah. Did you ever, dude, we didn't even use trail cameras growing up. First of all, my dad never had a trail camera. Did you ever use a trail camera when you're growing up? I mean, you didn't deer hunt a ton.
No, not until you guys drugged me to do it. No, not really. Not thinking about it. No. Like when I did, it was just more like, oh, this is where I can hunt. Let's go out there. I'm just going to hunt. I don't care about when. I don't care about anything. There's a 90% chance I don't see anything anyways. So,
yeah, I don't know. Hunting old Dukes, you think you'd probably see something. Did you ever get to hunt back there?
They said that I could hunt everything, which would have been east of the creek. There was a giant I saw riding my 4-wheeler back there in August one time. It was either August or September, because I had permission to go back there at any time, but I would never go back there during hunting season because I didn't want to screw anybody's hunts up. But I saw a giant on that bridge. You know, the bridge that we used to go back there and hang the trail lines off?
Limb lines? Yep.
Yeah, the limb lines. Yeah. There was a giant back there one time. And I remember asking him, "Hey, can I hunt back here?" And he said, "Anything east of the creek." I was like, okay.
Anything east of the creek. Yeah.
I've been using the new Exodus Rival cell camera for the last couple months, and I have found a beautiful mainframe 8-point with tons of stickers to go after this fall.
Ooh.
One thing I do appreciate about Exodus trail cameras is all of the cameras share the same data plan, so you only pay for what you need. A lot of cell cam companies charge you for HD pictures. I've seen prices of $5 for 50 HD pics. Exodus is going to give you unlimited HD pictures right to your phone, which is awesome when you're sitting there in the middle of the summer and it's 100 degrees and you just want to binge a bunch of trail cam photos.
If you're looking for a solid cell camera with great performance and a 5-year no BS warranty, go check them out. So as we all know, hunting gear is something people can make way too complicated. Arrows can be the exact same way. Instead of going down all those rabbit holes trying to sift through the endless information that's online and you're not really sure if it's right or wrong, Exodus makes it simple to get the right arrow for your exact setup.
So go online to the Exodus Arrow Builder. It takes less than a minute. You're going to enter your draw weight, your draw length, and how heavy of a point you're shooting. And it's going to be that simple. Let the guys at Exodus take care of the rest.
So if you're interested in Exodus Rival cell cameras or a new set of their MMT arrows, just go to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and use code HA15 for 15% off anything on their website.
Once again, that is ExodusOutdoorGear.com. Use code HA15 at checkout for 15% off. Now let's get back to the podcast.
On this, close to the house, pretty much. It wasn't, the east of the creek wasn't the good hunting. That's why I could.
It was hay meadow.
Yeah, it was all hay meadow.
That side of a creek. I mean, yeah, that's exciting. I don't know. So you saw in the last week this. Have you ever heard a doe grunt?
Yeah. Out at the
Did you
lease,
see him at the lease
a
grunting
few
the other
times,
day?
yeah. They're not super loud, and it's not like a. It's like a but is what they were doing. They were like but not like but not like a
Why are
deep,
they?
but it was.
Dude, it was so confusing to me because there's this little tree pin that separates these two fields. It's just like a little finger that comes in between them. And I was sitting in the stand the other day and I heard bup, bup,
Yeah.
bup, and I
It's
was like,
not
"What is
near as
that?"
deep. It's not near as deep, not near as loud.
No, it's not. But I'm not kidding. In the 15 years that I've been hunting, probably even longer than that. Yeah, longer than that. I've never heard a doe grunt. And that's pretty cool about the when you get on an unpressured property, you get to hear some of the vocalizations and stuff. No, because I got a video of a doe walking into about 15 yards and she just barely opens her lips and goes but and it's a grunt. It is 100% a grunt, but it's just not loud. And as the sun was rising one of those mornings, I was sitting there going, "Oh, there's a buck in there. Like there's a buck about to come out. It's a freaking doe."
Dude, those deer down there on the lease, they're so loud. It seems like when we go hunt public, dude, you don't hear a deer until, if you hear them, it's too late. If you hear them, you're like, I missed my shot. It's too late. They're walking by or there or 5 yards from me. But those deer down there on our lease, man, they'll be 60 yards away just powering through stuff. They do not care at all.
But you said one of the first mornings you were in there mid-October chasing you were in a good cold front. You said you heard 2 deer throwing down in there.
Twice. Two different times. Yeah, about 10 minutes apart. They could have been the same deer. But yeah, I forgot about the new 8-point that came in there. He was I think he's a 130s 8-point. He came strutting in there, but I heard some grunting over there in the trees, just to the east. I mean, yes, it's on our property. I'm not hearing across the river or anything like that. It was in that finger almost where the river goes around the oxbow. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that tree, in those trees over there, there was definitely fighting going on. I heard some fighting and I was like, hey, this may have been one of the first times that I've actually heard this in person.
Well, you see people rattle all the time and you're like, man, does it really sound that violent? And then you hear it in person, you're like, it's more violent. It's way more violent than you think.
I when I rattle, I'm like,
that's not what it sounds like.
No. What I heard was a war, and I just remember texting a few people and saying, dude, I hear deer throwing down. I've never heard this. And then about 10 minutes later, I heard it again. And I was like, okay, this is the reason I know it was deer and not, people across the river. Well, first of all, our friends lease across the river. So they're not hunting out there. We know it's not them. And the nearest person close to us is probably over a mile away. When it comes down to it, that could be hunting. And I thought, man, is that somebody across the river hunting and rattling? Because it's pretty early. It's pretty early to be rattling. Well, about 15 minutes after that, man, here comes that 8-point, and he just got through fighting. I mean, you can just see he's breathing hard. He's puffed up.
The new 8-point?
Yeah, the new 8-point. He's puffed up. His hair's standing up, and he came in, and I saw him scraping on a tree. He came in, and he was grunting. He went from the east tree lines from scraping to grunting. Then he came over on the west side and started scraping. And then he just kept circling the feeder. And then he chased a doe. He started chasing a doe. And the doe ran off. He chased her for a few yards and then thought, not worth it. It wasn't for the food. It wasn't because she was on the food. She was off the food walking. And he chased her for a little bit and she ran off. And then he just kind of circled back around me and went back to the north. And I thought, wow, I just watched a deer. That deer was fighting. Watched him come in and scrape. Watched him grunt. Watched him go around and scrape. And then watched him chase a doe. I was like, it does not get any better than that.
You watched a deer do actual deer things like they should.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy as that sounds, is I don't ever see that. I've never been, first of all, I've never really had a place good enough to hunt where that activity happens and that caliber of deer are. When we hunt public land, yeah, there's caliber of deer, but there's not enough deer around you that you get to see that happen. So
no, one of the first times I ever heard a snort wheeze in person was down there hunting with Jake, and I remember watching a buck do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that they really do that. And because you see all this stuff on Midwest Whitetail, you see it on these premier properties, and you're like, oh, I've never heard them do that. And then you hunt a place like that, and you see them, and they throw down and they fight. Like, I watched 2 bucks fight in a winter wheat field one time, and I swear to you, they started. It's like they agreed to fight 15 yards apart. Like, they started both kind of putting their heads down. And when they ran at each other, it sounded like 2 Louisville sluggers. Like, all right, you swing as hard as you can. I'll swing as hard as I can. Let's meet in the middle. And they just hit. And I mean, it's like, it's dust flying. It's, and they're like digging in. Watching them fight, man, it is some of the coolest crap ever, because it's not something you'll ever see in most public areas, just because people they play the grunt flute and they play the rattling drums. You know, people just do it too much where deer they don't act that way. So to see it, it's freaking cool. You don't get to see it very often. And it sounds like you got into it.
Yeah, to where, like I said, that week was the craziest. I didn't get one down, but at the same time, you know, I was like, man, that was one of the craziest weeks I've ever hunted. Like I said, I think I passed my biggest deer to date 3 times. And
you passed multiple deer that were bigger than anything you ever shot at, didn't you?
Yeah, 3 deer. The new 8, Mr. Next Year, the 10-pointer. I mean, I passed multiple deer. That would have been the biggest deer.
That might sound, to people listening, that might sound kind of stupid, and it also might sound kind of counterintuitive to what we've said. We've said, hey, me and Jake have went on a podcast before, and we've had TikTok clips kind of blow up of, like, Jake has a saying, and he sticks to it, I think, but never pass your biggest deer. And some people might be listening, oh, Payton passed 150-inch deer. Payton passed 2 130s. Why would you ever pass a deer like that?
Because it's just tough to explain, because we've hunted our entire lives in Northeast Oklahoma, and you don't see 5.5-year-old deer. The thing about it on this lease is I am very, very confident that if we don't shoot it, there is a 90% chance that deer makes it through to the next year. Probably no one else, because to the people to the north don't hunt. The west is just fields that no one's going to hunt. To the east is our friends that lease
everybody that hunts around there is fairly management minded as well.
Exactly. Everyone, you know, that's the thing about Southwest is so many neighbors and so many people have 150-inch deer. They don't care about 130, 140-inch deer. We do, because we haven't had that luxury. We haven't had that luxury. We're just kind of getting to that scene. But yeah, with a bunch of people managing, especially around us, and the age structure there, it's just different, to where, you know, Jake told me the other day, here's the thing. Mr. Next Year won't make it to 170 inches if you shoot him. But if you don't shoot him, he could. But he will never make it if you do shoot him. So as cringy as that is, that stuck with me of like, hey, he can't grow if you shoot him, but you can hope that nobody else does.
Yeah, and it's a luxury and a privilege to, when you hunt in a place like that, there's an incentive to be management minded, because you know everyone else around you is practicing what they're preaching, and it's the incentive structure to not shoot a deer like that is there, because you're like, okay, like you said, I've hunted here 3 years. Every deer that I have passed or been like, I hope to see that deer next year, I see him. I typically see him. If I don't shoot him, I see him. The 6x7. So the 6x7 that I shot last October, that buck was a 5x6 the year before. And he was there all the time. Like in November when we were hunting public, he was in there daylight, and like November 1st through 10th, like every morning he was in there. He busted an eye guard off, and I wanted to kill him that year, but I ended up tagging out, and I was like, man, I hope I see him next year. May like 1st, I put up a trail camera, and here he comes in, and he has a split eye guard, and I see him, and I know it's him. And he was there like every freaking week of the summer. And I watched him bloom. Opening day, I go in and kill him, and he still has velvet on his horns. And when you see that happen a few times, you're like, okay, I can pass. It's also, I think a lot of it is when you have a buck that is a really good caliber, and there's several that are that same age class, that are that same caliber, you're like, okay, I can let the best one in that age class go.
Yeah, and that's the best part about it is, refrigerator. There's deer like him, refrigerator, and there's other deer out there. The 5x7. He's a mature deer. It's like, why shoot a 4.5-year-old hunter? Yeah, the 8 points that are 130-inch 4.5, they're not going to be 160s. They're not going to be 170s. We know that. If we're lucky, they'll break into the 140s if we're super lucky. So they're okay to shoot. They're okay to shoot, but it's just tough to go in there and say, I could have shot a 130-inch 8-point. I could have, if I tried hard enough to get my bow in my hand and stand up, I probably could have, but I was like, I'm in no rush because I know what's in here and I know what other deer, how old they are and why try to force this. I'm only upgrading, if I shot the 130-inch deer, I'm only upgrading a few inches to, if I stuck it around a few more weeks, maybe I upgrade 20 inches. So
there's part of it that you're like, I don't want to be out of the game.
Yeah.
I don't want to take myself out of the running for a 160 that comes by November 7th, chasing a doe. It's hard when you have the best part of your season in front of you and you're like, okay, if I take myself out of the game right now, just like Mr. Next Year, he'll never be 170 if you shoot him now. You'll never shoot a 160 if you shoot a 130 right now. Yeah. And it's not that we're above a 130 because I am not. I will blast one into next year. It's just I'm not in the market for one right now.
Exactly. Till November. I mean, man, you gotta give me till the rut I'm gonna stick to it. You gotta give me till the rut before I shoot one of those deer that are just simply old. And refrigerator after the rut, he's probably gonna be on my hit list. Because why not?
He'll be on my hit list too, bud.
Yeah. So why not? But at the same time, there's so many variables that you just don't get in other places to where it's like, I could have shot that 130. And then today we got a surprise feature today on the trail cameras of the buck that I go crazy for.
So there was 2 deer this summer that you got stiffer than a board for, and it was Paddles. And I did too. Paddles was probably one of the bucks that I liked the most just because of unique and the character and stuff. But I don't know. The wide one might have been your number one, wasn't he? That you liked the most?
He is, man. His frame he's a big frame. His brow tines are like, come on, be a little better. His brow tines are a little better. I think he's a mid 140s deer. But I think he's high 130s, could break into the 140s, and he does not come around a lot. But man, he came in at noon today on video. It was like noon or 2 o'clock, and then he stuck around and he was on the feeder at 6 p.m. And again, this is not an evening spot. This least is not a good evening spot, but he stuck around and he got him some nice protein in him this evening.
Some yellow nuggets. Now that buck is so there's a term that Jake and I use, and I don't prioritize score over everything because I think it's just silly to prioritize score over everything. There's so much more that matters, and whether you care about score or age, it's kind of irrelevant. But there's something that we call presence. And it's when a buck, let's just think about it as like a bar. When 5 bucks walk in the bar, who looks over and goes, damn, he's here? Who's the widest? Who's the tallest? Who's got the biggest presence in the room? Because there can be a buck that's 130 that has a bigger presence than a 160-inch deer.
Yeah,
no doubt. You can fit his rack in between. That 160 can fit inside of a 130. That 110 or that 10, I think he's a 10 with a kicker. We used to call him the widest.
He's got 2s. He's got 2, or he might even be an 11 point.
I think he is.
He might even be an 11 pointer. I don't know if both of them are scoreable. He's got a little crab claw, I think, on one side possibly. I don't know.
And a kicker off his 2.
Yeah. On both sides. I think he's got a kicker on both sides of his 2.
So
sides.
People throw around terms all the time. People say, oh, I saw a 140-inch 8-point. And I say, let's see it. Because I want to see that 140-inch 8-point because that's a mega giant. This deer, I think, is close to 20 inches wide. When a deer looks wide and you say, oh, he's 20, he's probably more like 17. 17 is a really good width on a buck. The widest I've ever shot is 19 1/4 last year. This buck is wider. He is He is framey. He is wide. He doesn't have an exceptional mass. I'd say he's decent at tine length, but he has presence. You'd put him on, if he was on the wall, you'd be like, wow, that is a stud.
Yeah, he's a good one, and he's one of those that he walks by. It's don't ask questions, shoot him.
The bow starts to levitate in your hand.
Yeah, that's one of those like, hey, I know that we have a 160-inch deer in here. I know that we do. And also, we forgot to mention old Snow White too. But with the 160-inch deer, that deer, the wide one, is still like, I'll shoot him. I'll shoot him, and I don't care if the 160-inch comes by after, because I will be thrilled with this deer.
So I already made a thumbnail for this podcast episode before we did it, because I know we're going to be talking about all this stuff. And if people are listening, they're probably wondering, okay, what's the piebald in the thumbnail? Like, and I wrote the description. It has a piebald as well. When that 160 showed up the same night, a buck that we thought was probably a 3-year-old 9-pointer came into the north stand, and that buck, we had seen him one time before. He's similar to the 7x5. We had seen him one time before. We're like, man, he's framey. Like he's giant. He's close to 20 inches wide. He's framey 9-pointer. He's so unique. His eye guards, instead of going up, they go like at a 45 back. And one of them is like 6, probably 7. The other's probably 5.
Like 7 inches. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a 9, so he has a very small G2 or a G4. He's basically a mainframe 8. But I got to looking at him the other day. I got to looking at him, and I was like, why? You know how deer have the white patch behind their knee, like right here? Yeah. I looked at him. This is because the time before we didn't get a ton of pictures of him, so I wasn't like looking at him close. This time he was way closer to the camera, and his entire legs are white. Like his legs from the shoulder down are white, all 4 of them. And I was like, I sent him to you. I was like, I think this deer is albino. That's not the right term. The term is piebald when they're not fully white. But he is a freaking stud antler wise, and he's piebald on all 4 legs.
And man, I'm not this. You might think I'm crazy. I think he's a mid 140s 8-point.
He is framey. He is a huge framed. You want to talk about presence? Him and that wide 10.
The wide 10 is. He's very good. I got a picture. Am I cool to show a picture on here?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but.
So I'm putting him on the thumbnail. Yeah, that's the exact picture I used on the thumbnail. He is framey.
Where he is just, man.
Well,
and his beams are they're so long. They're so long.
Well, we have a rule on the lease. Like we'll shoot a 4.5-year-old 8-pointer. That's just kind of something we'll do. I mean, because typically in that 4.5-year-old age class, you're going to have deer with more points that you want to move on, and you want to shoot 8 points and take them out. This buck is basically an 8-point. I think he's 4.5. After I talked to Jake, I think he's a 4.5-year-old. Don't have a ton of history with them, so there's no way to really tell. But I was talking with Jake about it, and Jake Gaylord, and I'm like, dude, if one of us shoots this buck, I don't know if I would full body mount him. I would literally consider it because of how unique. I looked it up. 1 in 100,000 deer are piebald. That is more rare than that's more rare than a booner. Piebald.
I think we're crazy. I think I'm really hoping. Here's a cool thing about it is he's 4.5. If he comes by, we're gonna shoot him. If he doesn't, he should be around next year, and that deer might. Oh man, if he gets even bigger,
150-inch piebald, I'd be like, dude, I'm full body bound him.
Yeah, dude, bring your rifle. We are rifle hunting this rifle season. We don't rifle hunt, but for this deer, we're rifle hunting.
He is such a cool buck. It helps though that he's big too. I'm like, okay, if he was like 100 inches, I'd be like, dude, I'm thinking about shooting him. But since he's 140, I'm like, okay, he's 140 and a piebald. Like, he double checks my boxes.
Man, I don't think he just breaks 140. I think he's a mid 140s. He's one of those 8 points that, when I said about paddles, I was like, man, I'm never killing an 8 point as big as him. And then this deer shows up, and I'm like, Wow. Okay, he might be 10 inches bigger than Paddles.
Yeah, he's a freaking unit, and I hope somebody lays him down. We call him Snow White because the only reason we name a lot of the deer that we see is because it gets really old going, you know, that 8-point that's got the 7-inch eye guard and the 6-inch, and then he's probably about 20 inches wide. You're like, no, Snow White. He's got albino legs. So that buck is dude, he's on my crap list. I would deflate him if I saw him. He's beautiful. Probably one of the prettiest deer. Another option on a deer like that was I heard about a pack mount. You can pack mount them and have them roll those albino legs up and like have them hanging out the front of the pack mount, which you already have a pack mount on a bear, so you probably won't care.
I don't know. It's one of those that if he comes around when I'm up there and I shoot him, it's almost like I got to do something with him to show that off. I can't just let that go to waste. That's not. You just can't. You just can't let that go to waste like that.
I think
that's a once in a lifetime. That's a once in a lifetime.
I think you can get them the hide tan too. But like, it's the type of deer that if I shot a piebald, I would call Jared, our taxidermist. I'd be like, okay, Jared, I haven't touched this deer. What do I need to do? Do I need to bring it to you right now? Because it's unique. 1 in 100,000. I've heard of one albino deer that I knew of by the lake. Christmas is I think what they called it. It was albino doe. This it's not a piebald doe. It's not a piebald little buck. It's a piebald, but he's 140 inches. Like, that sucker is big enough to full body mount with the piebald. And he would live in the HA headquarters when we build out a podcast studio or something.
Yeah, he's one of those that I dream about him, man. He's a good deer and he's so beautiful. To where he's got that like white, it's not white, but that grayish, whitish hair on his face too, because it's hard to explain because you see that in older deer, but he's not old. He's not old. So
he's mature, but he's not old.
Exactly. He's not old, and it's just tough. Even the whites around his eyes and just his face is a little more white. It's crazy. This deer's absolutely crazy.
He's one of those deer that's big enough that you're like, hey, his horns are distorting his body. You're like, I don't know if his horns are just that big or his body's that small. And I showed him to Jake, and he's like, no, that's a 4-year-old deer. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm not just overestimating his body size. He's really not huge bodied, but
he's not. I would say, looking at his body, I'm looking at him now, probably 160, 180, probably 180s.
Well, I've heard people say too, I've never really tested it for myself. But I've heard that those deer that have, as they grow bigger racks, their bodies are smaller, and refrigerator would be the only example you'd need for that statistic. That dude is like, I haven't eaten in like 30 minutes, so it's about time to eat again.
Yeah.
Dude, imagine those farmers are like, dude, I think we have an infestation and the cows, somebody let their cows out in refrigerators. Like, that was me, homie.
Yeah. And guess what? You ain't gonna do nothing about it.
Send your best 10-point in here. I will take his soul.
Yeah, man. Exciting week. There's a lot to come. I think big things are to happen. I've been out there. I had my bow in my hand. I didn't the last 2 days, but shot today. Got the blind. Just for the people that don't know, where that North stand's not the most ideal hunting setup, but we got a blind. We're gonna get it set up. I'm going to go get it brushed in the day before, 2 days before you get there. So I think, buck's going down by Tuesday. It's just which one is it going to be? Possibly 2.
Man, if I can get one with a recurve, I can die happy here at this hunt. And so I'm gonna hunt this recurve hunt, and then I'm gonna head back to the lease. I think we'll probably stay out at the Sayago house together and hunt and work next Monday and Tuesday there. It is, man, I don't know how we're in late October already. I don't know where the frick October went, because I had 2 wedding weekends, and Lauren, it was funny. I was talking with Lauren. She's like, man, you've been hunting so much. I was like, I've went twice. Yeah. She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, we've just been gone every weekend. Went up to Garrett's wedding in Kansas City. Lauren and I had a wedding in Austin. We had a 2 weddings in September and 2 in October. So I feel like I haven't been home, but I'm like telling Lauren, I'm like, Lauren, the last time that I've seen a 28 degrees on Halloween has been a decade. It's been a long time. I think we've been blessed with a really, really good October so far.
Yeah, we have, and they've been on weekends with the right winds, and that's kind of the same way. You know, I told myself, all right, Peyton, you got all October, November, December, half of January. I looked down yesterday. I was like, okay, October's gone. Yep. I don't know how that's possible, but October's gone. So let's hope November slows down. And this is when the PTO, you know, we'll start taking PTO at work and stuff like that. So it's going to slow down a lot. So it's time.
Your boss is going to be pumped.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't tune into this, but I won't be hunting Monday and Tuesday. I'll be working.
Yeah.
Just don't call me till 9:30.
Your boss is probably a longtime podcast listener, and he's like, "Listen, man, you've been lying for years." I listen every week.
October, November, December. We know you ain't worth a crap at work, son. So
if people wanted to like go back and listen to the work schedule, they could just go and listen to the week and be like, "All right, he said he was taking Thursday, Friday. He was at work. How'd that work?" I didn't think about that. Everybody's like writing their death wish on the podcast. Like you could really get in some trouble. But dude, I was just like I was telling Lauren, man, we wait all year for between today and November 14th. I'm like, listen, if I could spend every day in the woods, I would. I can't and stay married and stay less than 280 pounds, but I want to, man. I want to be when it's like this, even though it's been raining 3 or 4 days, I just want to be in the freaking woods. And with those 20-degree temps coming, you think you had a magical morning on October 15th, I think you're going to see true magic on late October. Scrapes coming, fighting coming, rubs. You're going to see it all when that temp drops. I think across the country, it will be like a light switch. In a lot of places, when that hits, it's going to be like a light switch.
Yeah, deer going down. 2 more coming from us, so stay tuned.
There you go. Are you going to charge your camera for this hunt?
I've already got it charged. I charged it earlier today. It's charged up. I will pack the charger in my bag this time. I forgot my charger, so I was limited on camera hours.
So you're going to be hunting. You're going to go in Friday. Are you going to hunt? You're going to hunt the full weekend? Just the mornings?
Yeah. So yeah, I say just the mornings. Then the wide one showed up this evening, dude. So I don't know. It's one of those that if the wind's right, why would I not hunt the evenings? If the wind is right, why would I not?
So which stand are you gonna hunt?
I'll have to hunt the big bug down stand the first, no matter what, first morning. And then when I back out, I can back out. I might set to like, who knows, dude? I might just set to like 10:30, 11. That way, when I get down, I can walk back to the truck, access it from the east, go up to the north, and set that blind up after that hunt.
All right, so you're going to hunt big book down, and you're going to leave the blind sit for 3 days for me, so I can go in and kill one on Monday.
Dude, you sit wherever you want.
I don't care where I sit, but you just have to leave me one spot untainted. one untainted on the lease. You can't be like, oh, I'm hunting here, and now I'm going to the north. Now I'm going to hunt here. I'm getting the best of all worlds. You got to leave me one untainted. Why are you laughing? Because you know you're going to switch between stands?
No, I'm not. Just because one stand smells. The other one doesn't.
All right. So now you mentioned it. I didn't do it. So Peyton, you want to hear something funny? I'll add it to the end of the story. All right. Go ahead. What happened? What'd you do to our best freaking stand?
So this is I tell you what, for the people that have stuck around, thank you. You saved the best best final minutes probably of any podcast here to hear this story.
Yeah.
So when was it? It would have been like Sunday or Monday morning. It was one of the magical mornings because I had 2 really good hunts, and that's how I know it didn't affect anything. Well, I get up there and I'm like, man, my stomach hurts, and we were about 20, 30 minutes before I can legally shoot, so I have time. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get down. I'm going to get down and go, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And so I go to stand up, and I'm like, it's as simple as that. I ain't going to make it down the ladder. And there is nothing I can do about it.
Sometimes you gotta.
Man, So I don't know any listeners out there have been through what I did, but it happens to everybody at least once in your life, and if not, then it will. I had to just lean over, pull my pants down, and just poop off the side of the stand.
And when you say out of the stand, you mean spray with your thumb over the end of the water hose type of look.
Man, when it came down to it, yeah, it was. I'm not going to get too gruesome, but it was a good angle.
Please don't.
And I had
to. A good angle.
It was a good angle
for you,
and it had to come out. It was one of those like your colon's like, "Hey, it's coming, buddy, and it's coming right now. So get ready." So it all came out, and it was a lot. It was a lot, and then I just remember calling you after saying, "Bro, you ain't gonna believe what happened. You ain't gonna believe what happened," because I remember telling you I thought it was the funniest thing ever, and I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. You know, I saw $8 this morning. You know, they didn't win it. It'll be just fine." So then tell them you're having the story.
Well, I get up in the stand, and you had told me about it, but I completely forgot about it. I was like, it's whatever, you know. And then I set my bag up in the tree, and I was like, brown leaf. It's like, this tree's a hackberry tree. There's no brown leaves on it. These are green. And I was like, oh, God, I know what that is. And then it was like a foot from my bag. And I was like, please, God. And I just picked it up, and I moved. And I was like, I called you. I was like, I better not get sick. And then I took a video. It looked like you took the end of a water hose, held your thumb over it, and it was like all over the tree. I'll tell you this. It had been raining all weekend. Dude, it had softened up. I'll tell you that. Like, I don't know what you're eating, but maybe you should consider another trip to the doctor.
Is that KFC and that Chick-fil-A, man? I don't know what to tell you. It happens when you get out there. I'm the only one in the house. I was battling some mice, man. I couldn't leave nothing out. So I had to go get fast food every time. And it caught up, man. It caught up at 3 or 4 days, and it was like, all right, it's your turn. It's time.
Yeah, man, that's funny. So end of October, what do you think if we had to give maybe a little, I hate doing predictions, but odds that I stick and find one this weekend at the recurve hunt? What do you got?
This sounds really stupid, but I think it's guaranteed that you're going to shoot. I think you're going to hit it probably in the double lungs. It'll probably stick on the opposite side shoulder, but I bet it doesn't even run 100 yards.
Dang, so you're giving me 100% odds?
I'm giving you 100% odds that you double lung one.
Dude, heck yeah. Okay. All right. Odds that one person gets on a buck in this late October Halloween cold front that we got coming in the next few days.
I think it's 100% too that an arrow is being flung. I think that there's 3 deer from me on my end that I'm like, or 4 that I would really like. 11-pointer, the wide one, then Snow White, and the 5x7. Those are the 4 that are. Yeah, well, yeah, I said 4. I thought I said 4. Maybe I said 3. But 4 of them, and those are guaranteed. They walk by and no questions asked. And I don't think that's a lot. It sounds horrible. I don't think it's a lot to ask. I think it's very probable that it could happen.
If somebody is like, let's say a guy's got a week off to hunt this fall, and he can take it in 2 days, he can take it in 4, take it in 5, doesn't matter. This October cold front, say he's got the same cold front that we got coming across Oklahoma. Would you be willing to put in 2 PTO days to hunt a Monday and a Tuesday with lows in the 20s in October?
Yes, you have to, because this isn't just a cold front. This is a huge weather change. We're still in the 80s, aren't we? I mean, throughout the day.
It's been wet, but it's still been hot, man. It's still been in the 80s.
We're at 70 right now. We're at 70 right now where I'm at. We're talking, tomorrow we have a high of 81, and in 2 days we have a low of, or Monday, Tuesday, it's a 50-degree difference from this time in 4 days. 5 days.
So are you only a weather kind of guy? Is that the only thing that's going to determine wind and weather when you're going to hunt?
No, when
you worry about the moon or what?
No, I don't. I don't pay too much attention to that because if the wind and the weather's right, then something's better than it could be. If the wind's right, why not? Weather's even better for us, especially on the lease. If wind's right, go hunt. The weather's colder, even better.
Mm-hmm.
Full moon. I don't think full moons are good.
I
don't
know.
think so. I have no idea. But wind is everything. When it comes down to it, weather just makes it better. And we saw that last cold front.
Yeah.
So
we're getting that same cold front coming this weekend on this recurve hunt. It's going to be wet. It's going to be still rainy. But my prediction is if it rains hard, I'm guaranteeing half of the people that are here are going home. Yeah. I'm not kidding. I think they will.
If you have rain gear, dude, here's the thing. You've got nothing to lose. You have no electronics you're taking out there. All you've got is your boat.
I have great rain gear.
Yeah.
I have Sitka rain gear.
Yeah, Sitka rain gear. You've got no electronics. I don't know if you're taking your phone or not, but you're not taking your camera. You're taking a recurve. You don't have a sight. You don't have any, you don't have anything that's going to rust on you. Go out.
Yeah, my plan this weekend is all day sits because people get down. You can't, if you have to hunt all day. So that doesn't mean you have to be in the stand all day, but you have to, once you leave the area or enter the area, you have to be escorted in and escorted out. So you have to be in there all day. So if you leave for the day, you're done. If you leave at noon, you're done. But what people do is they get down at 10, 11 o'clock. They go eat at the truck and then they get back in the stand. These areas aren't huge. So they get in these bedding areas. They're walking through and they're pushing all kinds of deer around. So my plan, I bought like 3 pounds of turkey, 3 pounds of chicken, 3 pounds of ham. I'm going to make some like quadruple deckers. And I'm going to make like 3 of those suckers. And I got gushers and chips. My bag where my camera used to sit is going to be like 4 stacked of like stacks and candies. And I'm going to be in the stand. Like I'm going to be trying to sit all day, which I would have done my first all day sit. You did an all day sit last year, didn't you?
Yeah, in Kansas. I think we did 1 or 2 and it didn't pan out in the middle of the day for us, but that's just a different situation.
Well, I say that because I was doing an all-day sit, and when the 4th person walked by me, I was like, okay, I'm no longer doing an all-day sit. It's over.
Yeah.
Got down.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's the weather's right. Even I don't know if deer are like duck or geese, but I know that when you're hunting ducks and geese, you have the cold front coming in, but those ducks and geese will be there 2 to 3 days before the cold front gets there because that's pushing them down. I don't know if deer are the same way, but get out there and hunt. Maybe those deer know. I'm sure they know, that something's coming. So they'll probably be feeding. Like I said, even today, I get superstitious where I'm like, oh, the wide one's out there. He knows. We haven't seen him in months, man. We haven't seen him in over a month.
Well, same thing with the 7x5.
Yeah. The cold front's coming in. That was only 2 days ago. They know this weather's coming. So they're up and around, they're moving, and it's about rut time. It's about that time.
Yeah. So in the next, if you're listening to this on like the 26th, in the next 7 days, if you're one of the people that gets blessed by this Midwestern or Southern cold front that's coming in, there would be very few situations that would keep me out of the woods, just of how good this is going to be. Nothing worth getting a divorce over, but holy moly, it's going to be juicy. I mean, I might get in an argument over it just to try to be out on a Monday or a Tuesday. But no, I think we're going to see scrapes, tons of scraping. I think we're going to see bucks starting to nudge does. We're definitely going to hear some fighting. It's going to be good, man. I'm excited.
Deer going down.
All right. Well,
I just don't want you to get too tired there at your draw out hunt because we're going to be pulling out probably a 230-pound, 160-inch deer. So, and you guys owe me. The cool thing is I don't have to touch 5 deer. So I got about 5 IOUs. So
we got these things called in public camp. We have these things called dragging tokens. And so anytime you help a person drag out a deer, they owe you one. So Justin owes me a couple. I owe Peyton a couple. And then Jake owes Peyton a couple. So he technically could double stack those tokens and just watch as the deer gets dragged out. Because we drug Jake's 162 out, and then like 24 hours later, I was like, I shot one too, Pate. And you didn't even ask how big it was. You go, how far? I was like, he's 600 or 700 yards in there. And you're like, all right, let's get to it. That's how bad dragging them out sucks sometimes. You don't even care how big it is. You're like, all right, let's just get this over with.
Well, he's down. He's down. He's dead. So there ain't nothing. It don't matter how big he is. We're going to get him. So
he ain't getting no bigger. So let's get to dragging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that I got service here at camp, we might end up doing another podcast or two, depending on the movement that I see. I don't start actually hunting till Friday. Tomorrow is a scout day. So we appreciate you guys listening. We're going to try to keep up with the podcast as we go into November, even though it's going to be a little tougher. Maybe we're going to be together though, so it's going to be a little bit easier to record. So if you guys are enjoying these episodes, these Hunt Talk episodes, make sure to leave us a rating and review. And with that, we'll catch you guys in the next one.
For Jake,
Jesus loves you.
Jesus loves you.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for checking out the Hunter's Advantage podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.